Hey guys, my name is Steve, and this is Average Joe's Fantasy Football. Thank you guys for watching our Week 4 injury report. With everything going on right now, I kind of felt like this report was kind of needed for you guys to help set you up for Week 4. I know there are a lot of injuries, a lot of no practices, limited practices, and I wanted to make sure you guys are ready for that. So before we begin this video, I do want to make sure and appreciate everything you guys have done for this channel. You guys have absolutely killed it, liking it, subscribing. We're not quite to our 50 by the end of the week for subscribers, but you guys have done a great job. If you are watching this and new to the channel and have not subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. And of course, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up for us. If you have any of the questions throughout the weekend, have questions for your lineup, trade questions, waiver wires, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We'll have the handles down below in the description. We want to make sure we'll be able to help you guys out for anything you have to help set you up again to try to win this season and get that trophy or money, whatever you guys might have for your league. So one of the things I wanted to go over was our Week 4 injury report. So there's a lot of injuries that have been occurring, especially with everything going on with the COVID situation with the Steelers and Titans. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I wanted to get you guys all set up for this weekend. So the first thing I wanted to go over was the questionables. Now, these are always kind of iffy. So questionable, typically most players will play on a questionable tag for them. But there are some players that have been very limited in practice that are still tagged as questionable and may be a game time decision. That's going to affect, obviously, your lineup. We want to make sure we're helping you out with that. So one of the first couple players, or few players I want to talk about with questionable, is Calvin Ridley. So Ridley right now is questionable. He is dealing with a hamstring issue. So he is not necessarily a game time decision. He is probably something that most likely will play. But again, I think you guys should be prepared for that. There's also Julio Jones. We'll talk about him for a little bit too. But right now with the injury, if Calvin Ridley can't play, and of course if Julio can't play, one of the players I think you should look for, besides Hayden Hurst, who I think is going to be a great matchup tight end this week, is really going to be Gage. So Gage is probably a waiver wire in most leagues, probably isn't on most teams. So he would be somebody I would consider looking at, or again, looking at some other wide receivers. If you haven't checked out our waiver wire video, we did that a few days ago. Please check that out. Might be some good players that may still be available for you in case some of these players that we're talking about today may not be available. So we'll put a link for that so in case you need to watch it. Next player I have is DeAndre Hopkins. So DeAndre Hopkins is a big one. So he has been in very limited practice most of the week. He actually is right now a game time decision for the Arizona Cardinals. So that factors in a lot of things. So not only does that affect Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, who's also questionable for the game, it also affects Kyler Murray. So Kyler Murray, yes, he's had a pretty good season. Great fantasy quarterback. He has been feeding DeAndre Hopkins like crazy. So any of you DeAndre Hopkins owners, again, please make sure you're following us or at least somebody to make sure you're paying attention to the injury report. He is a game time decision, but we want to make sure he's ready for that. It is going to affect Kyler Murray. It is going to affect Kenyon Drake. So that's something you want to keep an eye on for the Arizona game. The next player is Kareem Hunt. So Kareem Hunt is dealing with a groin injury. Without a doubt, if this was a playoff game, he would play. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Being that it's not a playoff game, they are maybe considering possibly benching him since they have Nick Chubb. I do think he is going to be a start. I think he's got a great matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately. I know. But I think he's going to be a great matchup. So I would still consider putting him in the flex position, maybe an RB2, depending on how your lineup is. But I would keep an eye on him. He has been dealing with this groin injury. It is pretty severe. Has helped affect him a little bit. If Kareem Hunt, for some reason, does not play this weekend, Nick Chubb absolutely becomes a must-start. Of course, he is in every league, let's be honest. But Nick Chubb is going to be fantastic for the week. So keep an eye on the Kareem Hunt. Again, continue to check out any of the news that are out there. Next couple players I want to talk about is Chris Carson. So, of course, if anybody watched the Dallas Cowboys game, unfortunately, Chris Carson was hurt in that game with a knee sprain. Luckily, it was just a knee sprain for him and the Seattle Seahawks due to that gator roll that Tristan Hill did. So right now, he did practice a few times this week. They are expecting to play him. I'm sure he will be limited snap. So even with that said, whether he plays or even Carlos Hyde, who is also questionable, one of the things I would honestly might consider is maybe a flex spot or just bench him in general. I think Chris Carson really should be benched this week. I don't think he should be playing at all in real game. I think right now, maybe put in Carlos Hyde. But let's be real, with Russell Wilson at the helm, Russell Wilson is going to be passing like crazy. So it's more of a benefit for Russell, TJ Lockett, DK Metcalf. Those guys are going to really take advantage of, unfortunately, the injury to Chris Carson and even Carlos Hyde. So, again, somebody I would probably consider sitting. He's probably going to be limited this week, but he is practicing and a very good chance of him playing. Next is Julio Jones that we mentioned a little bit earlier. So Julio is still dealing with his hamstring issue. He didn't play last week, which affected a lot of people. Of course, helped Ridley a lot. Julio may still possibly be out this week. It's not really for certain. He is closer to more of a game time decision than Calvin Ridley is. So again, make sure you have a backup plan for you Julio owners. I want to make sure you guys are set up for that. Again, there's some great waiver picks out there. I think on top of my head, maybe a MVS for the Packers is a great option. Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers is a great option. So I think there's some good receivers out there that you could possibly fill in if you need to for Julio if he is going to be a game time decision. And of course, those are the worst you have to deal with. The last person I want to talk about is Devontae Adams. So Devontae Adams didn't play last week. It actually benefited Alan Lazar, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But Devontae Adams is expected to play. He is still dealing with his injury. He is still questionable, and he has been practicing a little bit. So I do expect him to play. I think he'll have a good game. He's got a great matchup right now. But, again, keep an eye on it. The fact that he was out last week, there's a good chance he could be out this week, which would really affect the Green Bay Packers, would affect Aaron Rodgers. And like I said, we'll talk about why that might be a big deal. Now, before we go into the outs for the week and some of the negative part of this whole aspect is, let's talk about the good stuff. So let's bring it back. So right now, if you're a 49er fan, you already know the news. If you are a George Kittle fan, you already know the news. But back this week is George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. So that is fantastic for the 49ers offense. Right now they have been struggling with so many different injuries that have happened to that team. Now, yes, Nick Mullins is still the quarterback, but the benefit to that is for George Kittle owners, he is absolutely going to be targeted like crazy in this game. Deebo Samuel, I think, will be not somebody I would probably just hop in and put in my lineup right away, unless you absolutely need a flex spot due to some of the injuries that are happening right now. But with Deebo Samuel, I'd probably kind of slow down a little bit, give him a couple weeks. I think he's going to be a better option when Garoppolo comes back in 2 to 3 weeks, not necessarily with Nick Mullins. But George Kittle is an absolute must start. He is excited. He is pumped. If you guys haven't seen the news, I mean, this guy is ready to go. So I would absolutely say George Kittle, feel confident. He will be playing. He is back. It's awesome. So that's some good news for you 49er fans. Now let's go to the outs for the week. So the first person I want to talk about, and this kind of affect obviously other players. So Chris Godwin is expected to be out. We already told you probably about 2 to 3 weeks is what their expectation is. So Chris Godwin is somebody I thought about possibly somebody you would possibly trade in the future, whether you buy him low or maybe someone who just wants to get rid of him due to injuries. But Chris Godwin is out, which obviously benefits Mike Evans, even though we had him as a sit. I still don't think Mike Evans' matchup is great, but he will get a few more targets. The surprise injury that kind of came out is Leonard Fournette. So Fournette is officially out for the game, which we did have the running backs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as sits for our start sit video. If you haven't seen that, again, we'll have a link for that. Reason for that is the inconsistency with Ronald Jones and obviously Leonard Fournette. With Leonard Fournette being out, Rojo is now going to be a start this week. He's an absolute flex start, maybe a possible, RB2, but Rojo is definitely a flex start this week. Feel confident in that one since Leonard Fournette is out. Next injury I want to talk about, it's not as significant in the fantasy world, but it does affect obviously other players. So Mike Williams for the Chargers is out this week. How that affects other players, so Keenan Allen obviously will still be targeted heavily from Herbert. Last week he had 13 targets, which is crazy. But the effect of this is that he's going to have obviously a little bit more of a safety presence on him. Obviously the corners will be paying attention to Keenan Allen. So Keenan Allen might have a little bit of a different game. I think he still have a solid game, at least 9 to 10 targets in that game. But Mike Williams is out. Next player is Michael Thomas. Yes, they were trying to aim for this week. I think week 5 was more of a realistic aspect for him. But I think they really wanted to play him this week. But after looking at everything and just, again, wanting to reassure with the team doctors and everything, they didn't want anything to go any further than they have to. They are taking him out for this game. So Michael Thomas owners, if you hadn't checked the news, please make sure you do. He is out, so find a waiver or a backup to put him in. So again, Michael Thomas is out. With that said, Jared Cook is out. Okay, so this is going to affect Drew Brees and that offense. Now it's going to benefit all you Alvin Kamara owners. Show me that money. But again, Jared Cook is out. So all those tight ends that we all know is very thin in fantasy football right now may have to look at some other options. So maybe a Jimmy Graham if you haven't picked him up, even though I don't like his matchup. Mo Alley Cox for the Indianapolis Colts is a great option if you haven't picked him up. Again, part of our waiver video. So I would look for something else when it comes to the tight end position to fill Jared Cook's role. Next we have is Cam Akers. So Cam Akers is officially out with the rib injury. The problem with that is I don't think he would have been playing much anyways had he come back. So I don't think it really affects Darrell Henderson or Malcolm Brown. Henderson is pretty much taking the bulk of the carries. And I think at some point, the way he's playing, he is going to be the starter. Whether Cam comes back or not, I think Cam will take some of the shares from Malcolm Brown, more so does Henderson. So Cam Akers, I don't know if you want to stash him on the bench anymore, but I think he is somebody that may have some intrigue later in the season. Feel confident with Henderson this week. Cam Akers is out. Next is Deshaun Jackson. So the Eagles are struggling a lot again, kind of like they did last year. The difference is Carson Wentz of last year is not the Carson Wentz of this year. Complete opposite right now. So the Eagles players that are a little bit tougher to have besides Zach Ertz and maybe Miles Sanders, there's really not a lot of options out there. Now we do have Greg Ward as a good waiver at some point, but again, with Deshaun Jackson out, Alshon Jeffrey is still out, Goddard is out, the weapons are diminishing quickly for the Eagles. So, of course, as a Cowboys fan, I don't wish injuries upon anybody, but I do like the Eagles losing. So that makes me smile. But Deshaun Jackson's out, Goddard's out, Alshon Jeffrey's out. So, again, Eagle fans, make sure if anybody has Deshaun Jackson, who I think is still going to be a great pickup for later this season, I would kind of put him back on the bench, maybe possibly drop him. Then we got Jordan Reed for the 49ers. So he got hurt. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but his bones are very, very brittle. He's always hurt. So much potential, but hasn't been able to really play a lot, which kind of sucks for him. But, again, good news for 49ers. Like I said earlier, George Kittle is back. So, great benefit there for him. Jordan Reed is out. George Kittle is in. Raheem Mostert is still out, obviously, for the 49ers, which really helps, again, Jerick McKinnon, helps Jeff Wilson. Now, McKinnon's dealing with rib injuries. McKinnon has, obviously, the starter in this game, but I look for Jeff Wilson to kind of be more of a carry stealer, maybe a reception stealer for the 49ers. So we did have Jeff Wilson as a great pickup. I think he's a great flex option. With the fact that, again, Mostert's out, Kevin Coleman's out, and then obviously McKinnon dealing with a rib injury. Really the healthiest running back right now is Jeff Wilson, so I expect him to get an increase in carries and an increase in receptions this week. Good flex option if you haven't picked him up, or look for him out there. So then we've got Alan Lazard. So Alan Lazard kind of came out of nowhere. So he had an amazing game against the Saints, career high, of course. We had him as a waiver wire pick. Great option, great lineup this week as well for a matchup, and then he's on IR. So right now he has surgery on his core muscles, kind of came out of nowhere. Now the benefit for some of those players who are out there, of course, are MVS. So MVS is available in most leagues still, with the fact that he didn't really do well with the opportunities last weekend, where he did see more targets, but Lazard has been the better receiver. So with Matt Lazard out, possibly Devontae Adams out. I think Devontae Adams, again, is going to play, but there's a possibility. Again, MVS is a great option this week. He's got a great matchup, so absolutely go out for him if you can. Great flex position, maybe a wide receiver too this week for this Sunday. Then we've got Henry Ruggs for the Las Vegas Raiders. So Ruggs has not had the great start that he was hoping to have as a rookie. The Raiders are obviously loving to have him as a healthy starting receiver, but he has been dealing with some injuries and has been very inconsistent. So right now, Ruggs is not somebody I would even possibly keep on your team. I know I had him in one of my leagues. He was cut pretty quickly, just not showing a lot of consistency this year. Now, of course, if you're playing Dynasty, things like that, I think Ruggs is still a good option in the future, but right now he's not somebody I would keep. Definitely not a DFS player. So now, the last thing I wanted to go over is the COVID situation right now with the Steelers and Titans. So if you haven't heard, right now the Titans actually have even more players. I'm sure there's probably even more players as we speak getting tested positive. So the Titans and Steelers game has been postponed. They are treating this as a week 4 bye for those two teams. Now what that means is obviously those players get a week 4 bye. They will then play this game at a later date, which is actually going to be scheduled for week 7. Again, a lot of moving parts in this. The NFL is trying to figure this out as they go. The next thing is that affects the Ravens. So does not affect the Ravens this week, so feel confident. There's nothing changing there. How it affects the Ravens is their bye week changes and the game against the Steelers changes. So what happens is their bye week was week 8. It is now going to be week 7, right before they play the Steelers on week 8. So benefit for obviously the Ravens later on in the season. Steelers will be playing 13 straight games just like the Titans, so a little bit of a stretch for them. But hey, the 49ers played 13 stretch games last year, and they ended up in the Super Bowl. So again, no excuse on their end. But unfortunately, again, it affects a lot of you guys this week. No James Conner, no Juju, no Derrick Henry. There's a lot of players that got affected with this whole COVID situation. So the NFL is playing it by ear. They've been kind of making as quickly adjustments as they possibly can, trying to, again, take account the league, the players, making sure everybody's safe. So again, I wanted to make sure we talked about the COVID situation because I know there was some uncertainty, wasn't really clear for a little bit, but now there's a lot clear aspect to it and kind of how the NFL is kind of treating and handling this. So just wanted to make sure you guys know that. Again, I want to thank you guys for watching our Week 4 injury report. I know we haven't done one yet, but I wanted you guys to at least kind of get caught up. There was a lot going on right now, and I felt you guys needed this information to be prepared for Sunday's games. Again, if you have any questions, if you believe there's some good pickup players or maybe there's some players you should trade, again, please comment down below. Let us know if there's some players that you feel are some good steals in the waiver wire picks to help with some of these injuries that have occurred. If you guys like this video, again, please hit that like button. If you, again, haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Again, those handles will be down below in the description. And we look forward to helping you guys, again, continue to have a successful Week 4 and season goal coming up. So thank you again. Have a good one.